So I'm gonna laugh because or you're gonna laugh because of what you just said and the reason why I'm holding this mug. Notice
Okay.
it's I call this the results mug. It kind of looks orangish. It's supposed to be candy apple red, but
Uh-huh.
it's the black hole. Intentionally
Yes.
painted the inside black because if you focus on the results, you're not going to get jack.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Anytime you're looking forward, make sure that you're going forward through the wheel, not backwards.
You can't drive a car forward, only look in the rear view mirror. You know what? No, I'm not going to say that. I don't want to get sued.
Welcome to the Make Work Not Suck podcast.
All right. For today, what do you think about my topic?
I like it. You said that you have had some experience, some real world experience in the last couple of weeks with companies that are going backwards through the wheel.
Yep.
And I have seen that a few times. I think I've even been guilty of it myself a few times. So I'd love to hear kind of why, like what you experienced that prompted you to want to talk about that. Like what happened in the last couple of weeks?
All right. So in one particular company, we had a rock of who was on the bus and who was not in the bus for a particular division. Large division, for the company, it's the biggest employment group with roughly 30 people inside that unit.
Okay.
And there's a lot of old, I say legacy mindset, legacy, not that they're older people. It's not like they're older people. It's just tenured people inside the organization that are used to doing it when it was more of a, bootstrap startup, more, doing it by the book per previous. And it's like the vision has changed, the culture's changed, like the whole organization's changed. So there's this rock about who's on the bus and who's off the bus. And so part of that was, assessing, old core values to new core values. Okay, no big deal. Part of that was redefining the accountability chart. And, we work in pods. So what are the pods and what do the roles look like? And then, what are the current roles and do they map in? And some of it was just, this person was hired for this role. We've decided that role is no longer there. And can they adapt to one of the other roles or do they not want it? So it wasn't just, culture fit, non-culture fit. It was also skill set changing, dynamic mindset, etc. What had happened is this one individual did all of the analysis, went backwards through the wheel appropriately, started with what's the rock? Okay, what are the results we currently have? Who are the people? What does the accountability chart look like and need to be? Okay, what's the idea of what we need to do? The problem is we kept going backwards through the wheel as opposed to about face and going forwards. And what it came down to is the HR team was just ready to hire people. And finance was like, what are we doing? And the guy that did the rock, he was the head of the department. Mm-hmm. And he was like, I'm stuck. I can't make traction on this, but everybody wants this rock done. It's an important rock. It's one of the most important of the organizations. Why are we not, I need to make moves. And what it came down to is he did his part. And I think this goes into like defining, what is the goal? The goal was for him to do the analysis and to do like the things of the moves. The problem is it wasn't his job to solve the forward movement because that came down to HR, defining the job specs, what's the cost, finance, what's the, and even some of this was just experience the team had never done before, but it was,
okay.
If we're going to terminate this one individual because they're no longer a fit, they're a good person. It's not like we're firing for cause. It's just not working in the direction we're going. So we should probably, give them some level of severance, or we should give them a 30 to 60 day notice. It's like, but none of that was thought through in the to present the finance. So then when it came to me to make an approval, I'm like, guys, I don't know. So then they go to the CEO and he's like, why the hell? I don't like, what's this going to cost? What's this? And, then you get like CEOs pissed off that like, where's the plan? This doesn't make sense. No. And the guy that started the rock is like, I did all the work, guys. Like what? Like he says no. You guys are pissed off. I'm pissed off. I did all this work and we're still in the same boat 90 days later. And it was like,
I've had rocks that went like that.
It was ding, 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 ding. Okay. So you went from vision to results to culture to journey to vision. And then everybody went to result. We wanted the result out of the analysis of the rock as opposed to going, okay. And this was a little bit of lesson learned. The rock should have been just the analysis Another rock should have been, or milestone, right? Again, however you want to slice and dice it. What I said the problem is we got back to vision, and instead of stopping and going, okay, now that we know what we envision and we know the end result of the vision, how do we
Right.
about face and what's the journey? Who do we need to execute it? And what's the KPIs to do this? Because like, I need to know if we're going to double the team, if we're going to go from 20 to 40 and then let 20 people go, there's a block of time. We're going to have 40 people on payroll.
Right.
And I was like, what's the cost of that? What's the onboarding journey? How are we going to make sure these people, like, we don't want to hire people and instantly put them on client accounts. We can't do that. Like, there's a training window. There's a ramp up. What's it going to take? How many applicants do we have in the pipeline? Do we have the job specs done? There's all these questions, and the leadership team was frustrated that we weren't getting the result. And it's like, well, yeah, you just kept going backwards to the wheel as opposed to about facing and going forward. After coming to the conclusion of what it was, then it came down to, because we use Agile Scrum, it was, okay, here's the project charter. Here's the 8 user stories to achieve this direction that is multifaceted. Okay, well, let's go. And again, after 45 days of beating our head against a wall of not getting traction, it was, we just forgot to stop at vision, turn around, and let's figure out the journey to do this, figure out the culture component, figure out the results so that we can deliver on the vision of the original rock. And that has stalled the company. It has cost more money in the stall than it would have to execute the project, and put us, I would say, 90 days behind schedule. But the reality is it's been a problem for about 6 to 8 months. And so it finally hit a level of like frustration where it needed to be pushed through, but we're 90 days delayed because we went backwards through the wheel and then kept going.
So what would it look like? Because I've always thought of going backwards through the wheel as a bad thing. So walk me through how you can go backwards through the wheel, right? Instead of going vision, journey, culture, results, go results, culture, journey, vision. When would it be appropriate to do that? Like, when is going backwards okay?
Backwards is okay is when you're doing like a retrospective, or you're doing what do they call it, post-mortem, or you're doing an analysis, or you're trying to define as is to build what you're trying to go to. You start with what is it we want, and then you look at the result and say, where are we? Right? That's going vision result.
So you still start with the vision, but then you go to the result, which is where are we now?
Where are we now? What do we have? What are we paying? What is it costing us? What's not working?
Sure. Whatever the measurables are.
In some degree, in this one, I agree it was go result to culture. In some cases, you need to go result to journey to culture. But in this particular case, that's a different one. In this particular case, it was a culture analysis because we were talking about who's on and off the bus. So it was, let's go down to the culture component and let's assess the culture, like let's just against the core values.
Mm-hmm.
There was, let's just say there were 80% people that passed the core values and 20% that didn't. Okay, we don't need to assess that 20% in the journey phase. Then we went to the journey phase and we said, okay, what are the skill sets? What does a pod look like? And then we further groomed the list down. And then, we were in, let's say we ended up with 20 people that remain and, 80% that need to churn. Now, it doesn't mean they need to churn like day one. It just means over time, they could evolve or they'll exit out.
Yeah, but they're probably not a long-term fit. Oh yeah, so that is interesting that when you're reflecting retrospectives, analysis, kind of looking backwards or even trying to understand where you are currently, that it is okay to go backwards through the wheel. When would you know that it's not okay? Like what's the signal that you need to stop going backwards? Because it sounds like they just kind of kept going backwards. What was the sign that they missed that said, now's the time to turn around and go forwards?
All right, so I'm going to use a horrible analogy. I'm driving my car.
That's what we do.
I'm driving my car. I've somehow ended up in a place that I don't know where I'm at, and I pull over on the side of the road, and I look over behind me to see where I've been. What if I passed, right? The problem is when I want to drive forward, I don't keep staring backwards. Like, I don't keep looking backwards and drive back onto the road and drive forward, right? Like that's the
right.
So when you go forward through the wheel, it's when you're actually taking action or applying a plan or moving forward with a project.
Or building a plan though, too,
Building,
right? Like
yeah, building.
even building the plan and then executing the plan would all be forward motion through the wheel.
Otherwise, you're just going from idea to results.
Right.
A lot of times it negates the journey. You miss the journey, the execution, the component. And that's where a lot of people, they just, I have an idea and I'll do it myself. I have an idea to do it. Well, why don't you train it? That's going to take too long. I just want to do it. Well, you're not thinking through the journey and the culture. You're just going straight to the result. Whereas if you go, I have an idea. All right. Why do you have that idea? Because of this result. Okay. Is that a people or process problem? It's a process problem. Okay. Let's look at the journey. Okay. Do we have good? Okay. Let's go back up to vision and then go vision, journey, culture, results.
Yeah.
So it's, again, in that retrospective analysis, reflection, looking in the rearview mirror, all those analogies, that is when you go backwards. The second you're going to make forward progress into the fix or the right direction, you have to about face and go forward through the wheel.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if I've shared this story with you before, but I was sharing this with a room full of, there's probably 200-300 people in the room, and was doing a workshop for this organization and was talking about this on the personal basis and asked them to kind of do some analysis or a little bit of vision, journey, culture, results, thinking about themselves personally. And asked somebody if they were courageous enough to stand up and share their plan. And I think this was a group of like apartment management. There's an apartment management company. And this one guy stands up and he says, first of all, I thank him for the courage to stand up in front of 300 people of his peers. And he said, my vision is to sell 5 paintings this year. I'm a painter and my vision is to sell 5 paintings. And I was like, love that. Love your courage. Can I challenge you for a second? And he's like, sure. And I said, I bet you your vision is to be a successful painter. 5 paintings is simply the result, how you're going to measure whether or not you have been successful. And maybe it's 5 paintings this year, and next year it's 10, and the year after that it's 20. But that's simply the number that you are using to measure the vision. And the vision is, I want to be a successful painter. And it was crazy to watch this guy start to smile when I talked to him about, I don't think it's about the number 5. I think it's about being successful. And he's like, yeah, that's what I want. And I was like, okay, so great thinking. We just got to make sure they're in the right places. So you want to be a successful painter. What's the journey? He's like, well, I need to carve out more time to paint in the evenings and on weekends. I need to sign up for more art shows. I probably need to travel a little bit more, need to set aside some budget so that I can go to more of these art shows and get my stuff seen by more people. I said, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I don't understand this world very well, but that all makes a lot of sense. What about the culture side? Tell me about the emotional journey that you're going to have to go on. And he said, I'm going to have to get a lot more comfortable with rejection. And I was like, wow, like you're so right. If you're going to be a successful painter, you need to do these things, but you also need to be prepared for rejection. And if you do those things, I think you've got a pretty good shot at selling 5 paintings this year. And I loved that interaction because he was clearly a results guy, right? He started with results, but I redirected him, got him to start with vision, walked him through the wheel in the right direction. And I just love his honesty about the emotional side because for me, and I think for a lot of results and vision oriented people, that relational, emotional journey, we just want to skip over that. Like, it's going to be great. I'm going to go to all these trade shows and it's going to be great. People are going to love me. I think we overlook that and oftentimes end up tripping and stumbling over it because it's just easier to do it myself than to engage the team. I'm assuming things go well, and when I get rejected, I get depressed, as opposed to saying, sweet, I got rejected. That's totally what I was expecting to happen. That means I'm on track. That means it's working. And I appreciated that while it was a personal example, I think it applied really, really well to what I've seen in so many organizations that I've worked in, where we kind of have a fuzzy vision. We really care about the results. Maybe we talk about the process, but we just skip over the culture. and then either get mad at ourselves or get mad at our team when the results don't show up on or ahead of schedule.
It's yes, and it's funny how that works. Like that was one individual for his own objective, right? Like the
Yeah,
other 299 people in the room, whether he was successful or not, didn't matter. Interesting thing is that same scenario holds true if you've got 100 people in your organization, you got 1,000 people in your organization, you got 10,000 people in the organization. When you expect those results without going through those other two components, like it's just going to be stagnant. Or you can push results, don't get me wrong, but then what you're going to have is you're going to see the stock price drop when it catches up to you, right?
right. Yeah, you can hammer people long enough to hit results in the short term, but in the long run, you've got to have the processes and the people bought in to the purpose if you're going to hit those profit targets consistently over the coming quarters and years. I think that's one of the challenges that I see with a lot of my clients is they want the result. They're not willing to really spend the time to figure out what the journey's really going to take and the process part. And so that journey to culture transition tends to be the black hole where a lot of projects disappear and die because they've not thought that part through.
So I'm gonna laugh because or you're gonna laugh because of what you just said and the reason why I'm holding this mug. Notice
Okay.
it's I call this the results mug. It kind of looks oranges. It's supposed to be candy apple red, but
Uh-huh.
it's the black hole. Intentionally
Yes.
painted the inside black because if you focus on the results, you're not going to get jack.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. One of the biggest challenges that I see in working with a lot of organizations is that it's really easy to see things inside of an organization that you're not a part of. And when you're in the system, it's really hard to see the system. So let's talk about if you're inside of an organization, let's talk executive, let's talk manager, let's talk frontline employee. How would you know if you were going backwards through the wheel? If you're stuck and you're doing it wrong, what would that feel like?
Well, I can tell you if you're going backwards through it multiple times or you're trying to iterate and you're not getting anywhere, everybody is to some degree felt the definition of insanity. You keep trying the same thing and keep hitting a brick wall and you keep finding that damn brick wall. Yeah, you're probably going through the wheel backwards. I would say if you are frustrated, you're not getting the result you want and you are frustrated, then there's probably yourself or those around you are going backwards through the wheel, especially if there's a lack of clarity, a lack of direction, an expectation of a KPI with no clear direction. That's not a cop out. There are cases where it's like the journey is figuring out making the clarity. So it's not to be confused where you have a vague vision and the journey is to add clarity to it. So I'm taking that off the table. But if that's not the objective, then you're probably going through it backwards. Because when you're going through the wheel forwards, it's hard work and there can be frustrating components behind it, but there's exponential reward and enjoyment. You start having more fun with your colleagues, you start having more fun in your work, you start having more enjoyment in what you're doing. You see it's not instant, you got to go through the green line components, the hard parts first, but once you get through the other side, you start hitting from the back of the culture to results. Life gets easier and things move forward and faster. But if you're in molasses, if you feel like you're just like stuck in the molasses and it's slowly hardening and getting harder to move, you're probably going through the wheel backwards.
That's interesting. Yeah, and I've felt that at all levels of the organization. I wouldn't call it molasses. As an employee, it feels like Groundhog Day, where it's like, why are we doing this again? We all know this doesn't work. We tried this last month, we tried it the month before and the month before, and it hasn't worked yet. Why are we trying it again?
Yep.
And I wonder if that's probably more of what it feels like to the individual employee of going backwards through the wheel, right? We want to hit this particular revenue target, this particular NOP target, whatever the result is. So let's get fired up and let's go get it. It's like, unfortunately, it usually doesn't work out that way, at least not consistent.
Well, I can give you another one, and this is all different levels of the organization. If you're not hitting a result, like you get to an end of a period and you're looking at the results, and the solution is let's get everybody on the phone or get everybody in a room or get a Zoom or whatever, And this is like the third, fourth, fifth time that, we didn't hit the mark, and it was get everybody into a meeting and it just turns into a, 2 hour long bitch fest. Chances are you're going backwards through the wheel and you're expecting a result at the expense of the culture and journey. I heard somebody say like an idea without strategy is a hallucination.
I like that. That sounds good.
Strategy is going through the wheel forward, at least thinking through the components, where the
Right.
idea just to a result is a hallucination. And then you start resulting yourself to death, right? Like, we didn't hit the metric, so let's get a meeting together. Who and why do we need this meeting? Doesn't matter. We just need to talk about it. What do we talk about? Absolutely shit. We talk
Right.
about each other, about the thing, about this, that, the other. And then what's the end result of that meeting? No to-dos, no action.
Right.
You're probably stuck in a backwards loop.
There isn't a plan. Maybe slight shift in topic. I am seeing in my children, the world is becoming so user-friendly that there isn't as much, again, maybe this is just my perspective, my opinion, there doesn't seem to be as much grit around the journey as there was 20, 30 years ago. I talked to my son, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a YouTuber. Okay, I don't love that, but what's your plan? Well, I'm just going to be a YouTuber. And it's going to be awesome. And I'm going to make millions of dollars. I'm like, no. Like, what are you going to do? Like, what's the plan? What's the steps? And they just don't seem to be able to think about all of the steps that would have to go and who's going to help you and what's the culture and the values. It's just that journey. It's kind of I want to be a YouTuber, therefore I'm going to make millions of dollars, and it's just going to happen. It's kind of sad when I see it in my kids, but it's even more sad when I see it in my clients.
Well, that's I think where we get into like an EQ IQ, right? Like, that's such an IQ statement. It's like when people, and I get there's components of this. It's when you make business decisions strictly looking at the P&L with no idea how those metrics got on the P&L. Because on the other side of a P&L is humans. We're social emotional beings, right? There's EQ on the other side. And I think it's the EQ side is what interconnects the journey. Don't get me wrong, there's logic in journey. But like in the case of what you're talking about, especially in a business, is people map out. It's actually kind of funny. I was talking to someone this morning about it. Is I was like, wait. You know what's funny is everybody expects a result from everybody else, but as soon as it's their like strength, it's like, whoa, slow down. We have to think through this. We got to run this plan. We got to do this. But like, they will journey their work to death. But what they don't do is they don't take the bigger journey or other people's journey into account. And that's where the fallacy comes in, is to some degree, some people they think they're going through the wheel, but they stop at they kind of start from vision, they start the journey, and then they go to result.
Right.
Because they thought through their component or they protected it.
Right.
But as soon as they went to, I mean, you saw this inside one of our meetings where, we got to do all this work. And then it's next thing you know, it's like, where's marketing at? Why aren't it done? Why aren't it done? Where's it at? Where's it at?
Right.
That's another one is it's the EQ. It's the social emotional intelligence of understanding there's not only the journey, but there's the interconnect of the journey. In case of your son, like have you talked to mom and dad about what being a YouTuber looks like and what kind of content they will allow? Like, he could have mapped out the entire journey of, I'm going to do this video and that video. Kind of funny you said that, because my son did this when he was 12 several years ago. Is he mapped all this stuff out, and it was like, bud, you got to be 13 before you can be on YouTube. Oh.
Yeah. That's you're gonna want to think about that, right? I love the fact that he had a plan, though.
Well, that goes back down to it was a great plan, great idea, but too much in a vacuum, which ultimately became vision into result.
Yeah,
right?
That's a very common IQ problem. Is I know everything that needs to be known, so I'm just going to go do this, as opposed to having the humility to say, there's probably something out there I don't know that I don't know. Let me bounce this off a couple of other people on the team and see what I might be missing.
Well, one of my favorite ones is, why are we worried about step 8 when we're on step 1? Like, you've wasted. Nothing pisses me off more than anything than wasting time and resources, and
Mm-hmm.
especially time. That's the one thing we can never get back, right? Especially when somebody takes, like, I love it when people think a few steps ahead, or they can think of the, like, what is step 10? Like, what's the end goal? What's the result we're trying to hit? I love that. We need that.
Good.
But when people worry about step, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, when really step one is somebody else and their job is to figure out, step 1 to step 2, it's like you wasted so much time and energy about something that's not even in your sphere of influence that's going to change the moment step 2 gets done.
Right.
So, that's kind of goes back to, don't worry about tomorrow's problems. Today's has enough.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people confuse, well, I'm thinking through the journey. No, you're worried about the result at the expense of the journey. And so when you truly understand the journey and you got, okay, the vision, step 10, that's the end destination. What's the measurable? Okay, we got roughly 10 steps, and here's the result we're going to achieve because we did an analysis, went backwards, all right, going forward. We know what we're
Right.
going to achieve. Okay, what's the journey here? Who's got the first step, and what can I do? I can't do anything until step 1's done because it's unclear. Then your job is to wait, like, go on to the next priority, go on to the next task. Don't try to do somebody else's job. Don't try to over engineer it. And I think that's where we got into such like an IQ based society, is we want to over analyze and overthink and we feel like there's value into that. And it's like, all you're doing is wasting time, energy, and slowing everything down.
Right.
And it's even worse when managers and leaders do it.
Right.
Because
it reminds me of watching little kids play soccer, right? Where they all clump together and they're all trying to kick the ball at the same time. And I've seen so many organizations that try to work that way. It's like, okay, step 1, everybody on step 1. And again, there are probably times when it is appropriate to swarm an issue, but most of the time, understanding, okay, who's on the hook for step 1? What's that going to take? When's it going to be done? Do you have everything you need? Okay, let me get out of your way. And I'm going to prep for step 2 and the handoff to me, as opposed to everyone just trying to kick the ball at the same time. And you end up with like 6 versions of step 1. And then nobody knows which ones they're supposed to work off of.
Yep. You get the finance person up in marketing. You get production up. What's funny is I think I see more back of house getting into the front of house lately, at least lately. I mean, it's like, the production team is worried about how sales is going to sell it. So then they get in control of it. And I was literally, this is it was yesterday. Production team is building these strategies. Like, guys, like our CPA or our cost of customer acquisition is like $100,000 because we're spending, days of production time, high caliber production time up in the sales audit process just to do an analysis to give guidance and direction.
Oh, gross. That's a terrible waste of money.
Well, but if we don't, do this, then the client's not going to, no, that's a journey problem. You're trying to push a result at the expense of the journey. And because we're trying to do that, we're actually not hitting the result we desire because we've made our costs, our human capital dependency and process convoluted.
All right. So to recap, when you're doing a retrospective, when you're doing an analysis, when you're looking at what has happened and how does that compare to what we want, then going backwards through the wheel makes sense.
Yep.
Going vision, result, culture, journey, back to vision is a good thing in that context. However, once you get to forward looking, once we start talking about the future and what we want the future to look like, we need to go the correct way through the wheel. We need to go clockwise, vision, journey, culture, results. I don't know about you, but I have seen that sometimes I have to go clockwise more than once because I'll have a vision, I'll define a process, a journey, I define the culture, roles, responsibilities, and I get to the results and I realize that they don't line up. It's like, well, that journey is not going to get that result. I'm going to have to do either more or less or different. And so sometimes you have to go back through the wheel again and say, okay, if I really want to be a successful painter, how many trade shows do I need to show up to sell 5 paintings next year? And that's where I think going the correct way through the wheel can help get everybody aligned. And we can start having much more honest conversations and not point fingers, but just say, okay, hey, is it realistic to assume that you're going to sell one painting at every trade show. Maybe that's a fair assumption. Maybe that's unrealistic. I don't know. But right now, we're assuming that we're going to have a 100% hit rate. And that seems a little suspicious. Let's talk about that assumption. And that's a much easier conversation to have as a team when you're going through the wheel the right direction than a lot of the toxic finger pointing that I've been a part of in various organizations.
You nailed it. When you're going backwards through to the analysis, when you go forward, you're right. You may have to go through it once and then go back through it again to verify, like, okay, this is the journey. Do we have all the people? Okay, we got all the people. Okay, with this journey, is it going to deliver the results? Okay, no, it's not. Why is it? Because this. So you constantly have to check it. But the problem is when you don't go through it one time, you don't have anything to bounce against.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the point you were making, is if you go through it once, then you can sanity check it, versus when you keep going backwards or you go backwards through it, you have nothing to bounce against. You have no, you might have a journey in your head, and the culture may be yourself as a, independent contributor, but that doesn't mean you thought through, what's my process? Who do I need help with? What are the results? Okay, is this feasible?
Right.
Let me iterate again. Okay, now I'm going to take action. It's just planning.
Right. It's just planning.
Planning 101. But when we don't plan, then, or we're reactive to change, right? Like, well, I'll put that off. We procrastinate, delay. I don't want to deal with it. I'll make it up when I walk in the door. Then you're just redlining all day long. So
anytime you're looking forward, make sure that you're going forward through the wheel, not backwards.
You can't drive a car forward, only look in the rear view mirror. You know what? No, I'm not going to say that. I don't want to get sued for telling people to do that.
Yeah. I think it's time to close now before we get in trouble.
Don't actually drive your car forward looking only in the rearview mirror. Please don't do that.
Please don't do that.
If you have the desire to do that, please surrender your keys now.
This is a public service announcement from the Make Work Not Suck podcast.
Yeah. All right. I think I think we can call this one for today. Any final thoughts? Any final closing remarks you'd like to add there?
No, man, that's good. It's a good call out.
Make work not suck. Our podcast that talks about exactly that. Our process, vision, journey, culture, and results. We present real-world business solutions that make the difference. Our goal is to make work not suck. Hosted by Ryan Hodges, co-host Daniel Steere. Join us each episode and make work not suck.